right. That's the worst. Is that what you said? That's the worst. That's the worst.
Hello, everyone from everywhere. Welcome back to the second installment of the Gosh, I Hope I Don't Say Something Accidentally on Camera I'm Not Supposed to.
Again.
We had to cut that out last time. Alex, we'll start with you. True or false? Did you or did you not just fly in today from a top secret business trip mission?
We did, yeah. Chayton was like, this is a super important video and we really need to get this scheduled in, and yeah.
We actually changed our flights to get back on time.
Really?
Really? Yeah. I mean, that's how much we think of Chayton.
It was a $5,000 upcharge, but it's totally.
We put it against his,
Thank you for confirming that for us. We'll let the fans in the comments argue about where it was you were and what you were doing. So thank you. Gio, I just heard you got a little bit of a promotion.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I'm now officially the Quality and Development Manager. So
Ooh, what does that mean?
it's a little bit of quality control mixed with R&D, research and development. So I'm working in both departments. I'm tied up with both, and it works very well because obviously both departments, they have to work together in order to make sure first that we're developing the products that we want to, and at the same time to make sure that the quality of those products are to standard.
Awesome. Sounds like you're learning a lot.
A lot. Every day.
Every day.
Yes.
And he said he's tied up with both departments, so if the balls aren't perfect, we
Oh,
tie
you have
up
somebody to blame now. Yes,
we
completely.
tie you up until they're perfect.
Totally.
I feel bad for him now. He's running around everywhere all the time. He gets more steps than me now. Which is
Yeah.
Well, we brought in a special guest, Steve Kloempken. And who better to talk about the absolute power in the Summit Peak? So let's just talk absolute power. Last time, Alex, we learned that it kind of starts from the inside out with the Sentinel core. Now, I did bring a prop. Gio, if you please reach down
Of
to your
course,
right.
Right here.
It is a Sentinel core straight from one of the baskets outside. And I remember, Alex, you were saying that you kind of got these ideas, pulled the ideas from different places. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so the whole idea was to take kind of some of what we felt like were the key features of different weight blocks to kind of ones that had been successful in the past and kind of merge them all into one. So you see a little bit of like nucleus in there with a little bit more weight on the top and the bottom, and it's evenly distributed as well. And then when you cut a lot of mass away from that y-axis and you get it really thin in there, usually that will raise the RG a little bit because you have less weight closer to the center. You think of the ice skater with their arms in versus their arms out. When their arms are in, more mass is closer to the center, so it spins quicker. There's actually more mass further away from the center here, but the shape of it is so unique that we can make it heavy enough that it's still a low RG part. So you still kind of see that ball flow through the front of the lane pretty easily, but it's still going to want to change direction and be much more consistent off the end of the pattern, where sometimes if you kind of push it a little bit too much one way, it gets a little bit sensitive at the end of the pattern.
Sure. So I think I've always found that interesting that you could have same or similar RGs and differentials with different shapes of weight blocks.
Yeah, and a big part of that too, it really gets back to when you're starting to design the weight block. Your first basic idea is kind of, okay, these guys are going to be drilling the holes, somewhere in this region, whether it's pin up or pin down. Do I want those holes to strategically take mass away from certain parts of the weight block? Or do I want to build cuts into the weight block to where when they drill the holes, they completely miss it? And that has a huge distinct effect on whether the RG is going to go up or the diff's going to go down. We can really kind of manipulate where we want that to be, both pre and post drilling, based on where we put those cuts.
So this was kind of intended to preserve the post drilling.
Yeah, without a doubt, because all that mass has gone away from kind of where your thumb hole will generally be. The pin would be up here at the top. And then the thumb hole, with switch grips or ITs or anything, is the biggest hole, so it actually has the most influence. And most people will at least drill the thumb to 2 3/4 inches deep. So you're getting down in there where you're actually hitting that. So if we can kind of avoid For this particular design, hitting it, we kind of like that because it does preserve a little bit of that integrity of the shape. Now, there are other times that we actually want the opposite. We want you hitting it, making it a little bit skinnier, making it change those numbers to create a certain shape for us on the wing.
Absolutely. And speaking of, you mentioned that it was like a much more torquey weight block, and Hank has said the same thing many times. And Steve, we tested a lot of different covers. We tested all the nano stuff, we tested the cleaner stuff, we tested them at different surfaces. So what was that progression like, and why did we land on R2S Deep of all the different covers that we have to offer?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, the main thing is you're trying to look and see how that cover stock is going to complement that particular shape. So like with this particular weight block and that core, that Sentinel core, we also had to consider not just this, but also the other balls that we have in our line, right? And we have a lot of balls right now that are quite strong, that do pick up quite heavy and quite early. And the one unique thing that we saw with the R2S Deep was that because it is down the list as far as aggressiveness goes, you've got R2S, but then when you've got the Deep, it's actually a little milder version, right? So by having this cover stock that is clean enough, it actually allowed us to have a bowling ball with a very, I'd say, a high-powered type of a characteristic that didn't use its energy on its way down the lane near as much. So the advantage for me and for us and a lot of us in testing was that we were able to, a big high-end asymmetrical solid cover stock with a little bit of texture is typically it's gonna be very hard to move inside and still get some shape out of it because it's gonna wanna use that energy quicker. And this allowed us to, wow, we could use this ball a lot longer as the lanes break down because it still actually had a little bit more pop down lane because that cover stock was really a better blend for this core when you're talking about trying to have something that's going to actually be usable as you get to the middle part of the lane.
We tested it polished, we tested it sanded, but then we brought it up a little bit and was landed on 4,000, I think, ultimately for it. And Gio, how many color samples do you remember that we went through?
3,
for that?
Around 3.
3.
1 polished, 2 sanded ones, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And we when we got the sanded one that you guys decided which one you liked, then we started testing the engraving, which color of the engraving we like the most. And that's when we decided the orange. That's the one that we like the most for this particular ball, and we made it happen.
During the testing process, we've all had gotten to spend a lot of time with the ball, months before it was released, right? So we chose what we chose, and we have why we chose it, but what kind of shape does it make compared to some of the other stuff that's kind of in the line that you've seen, Alex?
Yeah, so I think the surface that we ended up finalizing it on at 4,000 was a really good blend of the two because, the original Absolute already had polish on it. We have a lot of stronger balls that have much more surface on them, stuff like Harsh Reality, DNA, Gem. Those balls are really going to be good really on the fresh when there's not a lot of friction. Now, the design intent of this, for me, is you can kind of get a little bit left of where you can with those balls and get the ball to keep going a little bit more. I think we all know generally the longer that we can stay in those stronger asim balls, the more kind of hitting power that we get at the pins. And so once those bigger, stronger covered balls kind of start to burn up a little earlier, like Steve was saying, we kind of run into having to make our first change, right? And this allows us to stay in that asim equipment a little bit longer, which generally is going to be a benefit for a majority of players.
Gio, you always said that the Reality was a favorite asim of yours that you could get left and still shape it.
Yep.
How does this one compare, the Absolute Power compared to that?
I would say the Absolute Power, cover stock wise, is still a little cleaner. So it will retain more energy, it will shape more down the lane. Let's say that Reality is something that you can start a little earlier in the block, where for more type of volume oils and more volume in general, Absolute Power is going to be something that is going to be cleaner, and you're going to end up using it for a longer time since you can go farther left with it and still have plenty of motion down the lane. I would say that's a bowling ball that is very versatile. You can also use them fresh for houses where there's enough friction, but it's the bowling ball that it also gives you the versatility where you can use it later on the day also.
Steve, we saw you strike a whole bunch in videos online already, but I want you to quote Marcia or at least give us some of Marcia's feedback on what she had to say about the ball. She talked to me in league about it and was pretty stoked.
Yeah, the one thing that she noticed a lot when I was using it across some different patterns and testing, it wasn't just one day. We're kind of practice junkies, so we come in here on the weekends and bowl a lot outside of just even, our normal testing kind of during the week. So when we come in on the weekends, we put down lots of different patterns because, we're bowling lots of tournaments on different stuff. And the one thing that she had noted, and it was pretty clear, was that when I was starting to see bowling balls go just a little bit too far down the lane, because my typical miss is to be a little bit tight and a little bit firm, and then it can miss the spot a little bit. But because it's a strong ASIM core, she would see that ball pick up in the oil and then continue through the pins, which I believe to be a combination of the fact that, one, it's got a very dynamic piece inside, but the cover stock wasn't reading so soon that it made it difficult to get that ball to shape down lane.
Sure.
So it was kind of funny because I could use either a stronger ball when I was using comparison, like when we were talking a little bit about, like, say, a Harsh Reality, or even a DMA that I had, and it would seem like the better choice in terms of getting it to pick up and make a little bit better shape down lane was the Absolute Power. But then I had the other times too where if I went to something that was a cleaner symmetrical and it would shoot down the lane and I would have to grab it to try to make it hook, I could just go to my Absolute Power, and then it was the right choice that time too. So it was kind of funny because it was kind of pushing me on both sides, like, throw this ball. That's what I was taking from it.
So another question for you: when you look at layout and you get to see the shapes and work with the shapes, do you choose a layout based on the shape and knowing how you're going to affect the weight block as a player yourself? Do you look at that when you're drilling a ball?
I do. Some players have just maybe one layout they stick with or two. I have a few extras, and typically I have one standard, like 5x4x2 will be a pretty good when I want to get an idea on what a new type of a shape is going to do. When we were in the original Absolute, for example, or any of our other great weight blocks, I'll do a 5x4x2 a lot of times because it's going to be close, and I know that it's going to, what I would get out of this, because now I can kind of compare apples to apples. And then when I settle in on something, I find a ball that I really like this Absolute Power, then I'll complement it and drill at something that I know is going to create either more shape or maybe be a little bit smoother, and adjust that based off of that 5x4x2. I do like to adjust my pin buffer in terms of trying to create something that's going to be a more noticeable breakpoint or something that's going to be a little bit more gradual and expand and take those to different extremes. But a lot of times, most of the equipment I have, and I don't know if Alex and Gio are kind of the same, it's that 5-inch pin to pap is, in general, get you pretty close to almost the right.
Actually, I was going to say that's exactly my standard layout. 5x4x2, that's my first layout that I put in basically every bowling ball that I drill for the first time, just to see how it rolls for me. Yeah. And most times that's exactly what I like to see. It just lets the core weight block cover stock combination let the ball do what it wants to do. Yeah. And then if I have to make adjustments, I make adjustments based on that, but that will be exactly my same layout.
Okay, so the takeaway from that, folks, is if you want to strike as much as these guys, drill everything 5x4x2.
Yeah. So, Chad, I heard that you were inspired for the Absolute Power, and you had an idea already how the colors were going to be, and which is why you asked us for a certain pattern, and which, at the end of the day, it was the pattern that you picked.
Sure. Yeah.
What was your inspiration? I think that I have something here. None of us have seen it.
No, so I left it in the box. I don't think you saw it when I didn't send pictures when I sent the library.
You just asked for a pattern, certain colors.
Like some Pantones.
That's what we shot in the lab, and now we have something here that...
So the backstory is we get asked all the time if we can bring back like special releases, right? Okay. And a lot of times we can't, and that's mostly from like a development standpoint. A lot of the older stuff doesn't really fit with what we do now. It's like dual density cores, but at least we can look at colors. And because colors never die, this is where the inspiration came from for the final inspiration for the Absolute
Final
Power.
Inspiration. Any guesses?
Can you smell it? I can smell it from here. It's one of my favorites.
Oh, okay.
So
I
the
see you.
Yeah.
VG
Virtual
Nano Pearl.
Quality
Look at
Nano
that.
Pearl.
It was awesome ball. Obviously, it's a pearl, and the absolute power is a solid, but we still kind of went with the same Pantones of it. So it's throwing it back a little bit to the VG Nano Pearl. We also looked at virtual gravity, like the black, and you like that one a lot, Alex.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me a
Do
story.
you remember the fragrance?
Orange chocolate. I
Orange
think.
chocolate.
Orange chocolate something or other.
Good.
Anyway, that was the inspiration. But
People ask a lot of times, like, how long a fragrance lasts in a ball, right?
You can still
Well,
smell
here
it.
you go. 12 years later.
yep, still there. All right, the other great release that we have to mention today is the Summit Peak, and how fun that's been to throw. I love, low RG pearls. They just clean kick, go sideways, do everything that
Stand
you want.
left, throw it right,
Yes.
let it hook back.
Watch it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been a lot of fun. So we know what the weight block is inside of it. It's one of the best shapes. We've done it in multiple densities, all kinds of, just across the board. The centripetal shape has been one of the most successful storm ones of all time. And I think it's worth mentioning that a lot of the time when we're testing new cover stocks, Alex, that's the shape that goes in. That's one of the shapes that goes inside of them.
Yeah, definitely. What's so unique about that centripetal shape is it just seems to roll good at every possible density that you can manufacture it at. If it has a little bit of diff, a lot of diff, it's just worked really well for, honestly, a ton of different styles on a lot of different conditions. It's become the benchmark shape overall for testing. And so it made a ton of sense to make that the first implementation into the AI core technology in that Summit Peak.
How fun is that with centripetal with AI? Has been just a blast.
On the research and development side of things, the designing side of things, I've talked about this a lot, but we have certain limitations on what we can do with certain shapes. So when something like AI gets developed and we're able to kind of push the limit a little bit further, it really frees up what we can do in the designing portion of the R&D process. So, this shape's already been pretty good. We know if we can push that density, down a little bit more, it's probably going to help it increase the performance even a bit more, which, like we say, we did that ramp test. We did 800-ish shots and saw over a 3% increase in pin carry in the exact same spot. Balls hitting the pins at different offsets and entry angles. Pretty crazy stuff.
Nice. You had a 3% increase in pin carry, but a 20% increase in delt gains.
Yeah.
I was lifting all those balls.
That was brutal.
I have another prop here today. I don't think we've shown it too much on camera, but it's an actual AI core. No, not that, Gio.
This is another secret that you brought?
No, it's right there. Yeah, that's another secret. It's the next
Okay.
secret. But yeah,
This is exactly how it looks.
It's exactly how the art looks on the website. It's hundreds of different shaped facets. They're not even the same shape or size. Alex, why and how is that going to benefit us as bowlers?
Yeah,
Why are they like that?
Like we've kind of talked about, the biggest thing is it changes what we can do with the densities of the bowling ball. There is also, we've kind of seen a small effect on how much energy is transferred to the pins through those facets as opposed to a smooth round surface. It kind of bleeds the energy through the facets a little bit differently. And we think that that's somewhat of the contributor to a little bit more of that increased pin carry as well. But first and foremost, the densities are kind of the biggest thing that it allows us to be able to do more things with.
Yeah, you see that design, I notice a lot, like on in architecture and even in playgrounds. Like those are some of the most stable structures that have these domes, greenhouses, and
yeah, you do think of the playgrounds as kind of actually, that was the first kind of thing that we drew inspiration on when coming up with that is what's a way that you can kind of strengthen and reinforce everything throughout the entire ball and make sure that as that ball is hitting the pins, there's the maximum amount of energy going through to the pin.
There was I brought that piece to a STEM fair Ken Fong and I did last week, and there was an engineer, there's tons of smart people there, you guys have all worked it, but a teacher from a high school came up and said, wow, that must do something different versus opposed to a round core inside. He had some grasp of bowling and knew that was going to react differently on the lane and at the pins for people. So that was pretty cool to kind of be validated in the world of, high school geometry or whatever the hell he taught. I don't know.
Architecture.
He's over there laughing.
Engineering.
Math
It's
stuff.
probably
Math
like
Yeah, it
stuff.
says numbers,
probably home-
equations, and all that stuff.
Yeah. So, okay. So testing, colors. Steve, you were in the Waze video, right? You threw it.
Yeah.
You struck all day.
Yep.
Let me guess. 5x4x2.
We would have to double check that because I actually drilled 2 of them out of the gate, and I don't remember which one I threw in the video, but I had one with a little shorter pin buffer that was a little bit more angular, and it's actually that's one of the ones that I brought with me to Korea.
Ooh.
That one was a 5x4 by 1.5.
Very different reactions between
Very
those
much.
Way out of his comfort zone.
Nothing like
Whole
what I
zone
normally
change.
drill. That's right.
Yes. So, Gio, we have another surprise. It might not be a surprise to you, but please reach next to you, and then we'll find the inspiration.
There are 4 surprises in here. Just pulling
Chayton wants
stuff
us
out.
to.
He likes to keep
Great.
it lively.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
What do we have here?
As you
Ooh.
know, the Summit Peak looks eerily similar to another very famous storm ball, the Virtual Entry. So obviously where the colors came from. But Gio, pop quiz for you. What was the other color sample request? There's 2 that we put together.
Honestly, it was quite a while back, so I don't remember it.
You don't remember 58 color samples ago?
Yeah, I think that I remember until 55, but the 58th, I don't quite
just
grasp
a
it.
bit too
Just
much.
a bit
Just a bit too much.
far enough where I don't completely remember it.
Gio, in your opinion, would you say that's identical to the Summit Peak, similar, or not at all? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most similar, 1 being nothing at all.
I would say I'll give it an 8.
Okay.
Looking at the sparkling part of it, the micas.
Ooh, that's perfect segue into my next question. I was going to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
What are some of the things, like if we're looking at different colors or getting inspiration from colors, what are some of the subtle changes that you can make to a bowling ball so it's not identical to something from the
We can do so many things to a color. Let's say we pick the black color, and the black color, it could look, once you put like a lamp to it or under the light, it could look more bluish.
Why?
It could look, is the, let's say, we can say mica?
You could say mica.
Okay. When we put the mica into the color, we have different color of mica. So the mica is that little sparkling, that little what makes the ball shiny, what makes the ball pearl.
Pearl, yeah.
And those will have different colors of it. So a black color, we can make it black with the purple, or black with gold, or with silver, or with white, or we have so many different colors that we can mix, and we can mix it in the black, or we can mix it with the gold, or with the green, or any other color that we want to make a pearl or pearlized. So it's so many things that you can mix in there. Even the engraving, if nowadays you see, even the engraving now, it has
Different color flake.
different colors, and some of them are, let's say, pearl engraving, or like they have the shiny and they have those little particles there. Like
Yeah.
we can do it everywhere, anywhere, and which is what you can do with pearl balls. You can do with also the hybrid balls. Those pearl parts that have those little micas, and you can make any color be shiny towards any other one, depending on the mix.
So a good example of that would be, first one that comes to mind is the Zen Gold label. It was black pearl. But if you look at like a IQ 2 or 30, it's black pearl, but like a different shade of black pearl.
Exactly.
So that difference in color is coming from the micas that are inside. And I don't think there's a lot of people that kind of know that, or even thought to take like a flashlight from your phone and hold it up to the ball, and you can kind of see all
To
the
me,
different
that's what makes it pretty.
color
Like every time
sparkles,
that you see a pearl ball, just grab the flashlight of your phone and kind of point it at it, and you'll see how it sparks up, and you see all the little sparkling part of it, and you can actually see what color it is inside of the actual color of the ball.
Yeah, fun trick. Try it at home, folks.
Try it at home.
Yep. So we have had quite a few symmetric pearls in the day. All right. So, but Summit Peak is different. Steve, why is it different, and why should I care?
Yeah, well, we introduced the original Summit just this past summer. Super popular AI core technology, but it also had a TX23 cover on it. And I think we're all in agreement, and the general public has been feeling the same way. It's the strongest symmetrical we've ever come out with.
Right.
And that Summit hooks a ton. Now, that was prepared with a little bit of surface, right? It's got like 3,000 on it. It is a hybrid. But we did want to stick with that same base aggressive blend cover stock, and that's what that TX23 is. So while we did make it a pearl, we used our React-A-Gloss to polish it, to shine it, so we have that cleaner surface prep. It still hooks a lot. I mean, we have cleaner pearl symmetricals, I would say, right?
Ruby,
I mean, IQ Tour Ruby is one for sure. Even something in our global line, you're looking at like the
Zen Gold label.
The Zen Gold label that is
very clean,
and a very different shape, even though it still has, let's say, similar numbers and similar kind of characteristics. Like Alex was talking about a little bit before, you can't just lump them all in as the same, because they are very unique to those particular properties of any ball. Especially, like I say, when we were in Korea and we were on the show, Chris Vai and Darren Tang, both of them, relied on the Summit Peak all throughout qualifying and used it on the show. And it was a great matchup for them because they were throwing it away from their laydown. Their angles were open, and the Summit Peak just kept making the corner and making the turn and getting back to the pocket. That was the big thing.
I feel like certain shapes of center bowling balls, they like some sort of shapes better than others. And that's that bowling ball for sure is the one that you can stand left, throw right, and let it go back.
That's right.
Sure.
So, Steve, I gave Bart Euler, our safety manager at Storm, a Summit Peak to give to his son in Idaho.
Okay.
That's one of his first Storm balls.
Cool.
Build him an arsenal around the Summit Peak, a 3-ball arsenal.
Oh, okay.
Around the Summit Peak for Bart.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, there would be a need then for a ball to go, one that's a little bit smoother and one that's going to be a step up or a little bit more aggressive. Now, let's say that, are we looking to stay specifically within the Storm line? We definitely can. If we're looking to expand a little bit outside of it, we could maybe separate those balls just a little bit more. If I did have a 3-ball arsenal, while the absolute power would be a nice step up from there, I might want to go a little bit farther than that, because I could mess with the surface a little bit, or again, I only have 3 balls, I'd maybe have a little bit bigger step to get there. So I could use, let's say, for example, a Harsh Reality or maybe a Magic Gem would be a really nice step up there. And then we have our Summit Peak, right? And then if we're looking for a little bit more control, for drier lane conditions, again, something that just has less volume, we're going to want to reduce the differential, go with something that's going to flare a little bit less and give us a little bit smoother reaction. Now, based off of knowing, style-wise, sometimes it does help a little bit knowing that, but an IQ Tour is an excellent choice for going with something that's going to be just a step down. Or if you're looking as well too to go for something that's going to be just a little bit more control, and you wanted to stick in that rotor grip line, there's a couple of hyped options that are also going to be a great dry lane ball that's going to give you more control. And when you're just seeing too much shape or too much motion out of the Summit Peak, then you can drop yourself all the way down to the hyped as well. So we got plenty of options. The Ruby, I tell you what, too, a little bit less differential depending on the style. A better player is probably going to see a little bit more of a separation, not a first-time bowler. You're going to have a little bit more separation. But the one thing we haven't talked about today, and it's been a mainstay in so many of the players' bags on tour, is the IQ Tour 78U. And
lots
to
of
use
300s.
that, lots of 300s on both sides of the lane, on a variety of different oil patterns, and you also have a ball, too, that could help assist with some spare shooting as well, too. 3-ball, you could go big A-sim, then we could go Summit Peak, and we could throw that IQ Tour 78U in there as well.
Yeah, urethane's kind of a staple these days.
If you're a tournament bowler, you always need a urethane in your bag.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us. It was a lot of fun talking. I learned some stuff today. Hopefully you did too. We're going to do more of these with the other brands of our little love triangle going on here in Brigham City, Utah.
I love triangle.
Our little
That's good.
Oh, I'm so red right now. Yeah, I think we're going to have Schlem next. Kabansky might video call in on FaceTime or something, and we'll talk to him about some of his releases too. So keep an eye out for more Designing with Intent. And until next time, I'm Chad. This is Steve. That's Gio and Alex. Thanks, guys, for taking time out of your day and joining us here today.
Thank you for the invite.
And remember, everybody, to always bowl
Up.
A
Storm.
All right. That's the worst. Is that what you said? That's the worst. That's the worst I've ever seen in my life.